with this one, that enough cleaning out the refrigerator. I never realized how good that yeah, well, my wife would have.
Right, I mean, right.
Straight into I spent so much time on the computer. I've learned how to look at which basically I mean, when I read the book, I didn't understand what it said, but then you read the line underneath. This is line stuff that's 4.9.
I remember him talking about.
What's up, everyone? Welcome to day number 2 of summertime. What's up, everybody?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I said to myself, this place points out the stuff.
Yeah.
All right.
All right, welcome everybody to this regular planning board meeting on August 24th, 2023. Madam Secretary, can you please call the roll?
Mr. Jacobson? Mr. Bernardo?
Here.
Mr. Katzoff?
Here.
Mr. Lilly?
Here.
Mr. Hindman? Oh. Mr. Kamudi?
Here.
Mr. Deold?
Here.
Deputy Mayor McAvoy?
Here.
Councilman Roman?
Here.
Vice Chairman Fresky? Chairperson Pearson?
Here.
Mr. Tenkate?
Here.
Dr. Gonzalez? Mr. Macera?
Here.
And we don't currently have a zoning officer to attend. Just to introduce to the board, this is Kathleen Misch. She will be the new board secretary going forwards, beginning in September. She's shadowing me for the evening, but she will be assisting you.
Welcome.
Good boy.
And just for reference, Marcy will also be doing some of the administrative work on applications as well, so she will still be broadly in contact with us. So, and she's done an amazing job, so thank you. Okay, can everybody join me for a pledge of allegiance?
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The notice requirements of the Open Public Meetings Act have been satisfied with respect to this meeting of the Verona County Board being held in person in the ballroom of the Verona Community Center. The time and date of this meeting, the time and date of this meeting were included in the annual meeting notice posted in the community center and sent to the official newspapers of the township, the Verona Cedar Grove Times, and the Star Ledger at least 48 hours preceding the time of this meeting. A public comment period will be held in the order it is listed on this meeting agenda, and instructions on how to comment will be provided at that time. All meetings are recorded. Those wishing to speak during any public comment period should only provide their name and municipality. Street addresses are not required. Please be advised that should a member of the public choose to state their street address, it will not be redacted from this recording. Okay. Has everybody received a copy of the meeting minutes from July 27, 2023, and all of the resolutions that passed along with that? Does anybody have any corrective comments on this?
You skipped public participation on the list.
I'm sorry?
You said you skipped public participation on the list.
It says public participation on D.
D.
Hey, aren't we on approval of minutes?
That's right. She can, the chair has a prerogative to,
Approval of minutes is E. I just switched it. Whoops.
Okay.
Sorry. I like to keep everyone on their toes, including myself.
No, I don't want
notice how I defended.
Thank you.
Campaign.
I appreciate that, Greg. Mark that down. Sorry, I went out of order. If nobody has any comments or corrections on it, can I get a motion, please, to move?
Madam Chair?
Yes.
I'm looking, I must have closed the document, but I think my votes were missing on the meeting minutes on the first two items. Just didn't see my name. So there?
That's interesting because the first, here it is. When somebody nominates somebody to be vice chair, as he did with Mr. Fresky, he also votes in the affirmative, and his roll call vote should be recorded.
Oh, that might be the meeting. Okay.
No, are you,
The first one, right?
yeah, I don't see it there.
Yep. Yep.
All right, this is
And the
just,
second one, I believe.
but then it is up on the YouTube channel. So could you just go back and scooch through that and just make sure, and then we could just correct this and roll it back into one document? I can handle that. Don't worry about it. And then we could scooch it over to Elisa to post on the website. Besides that, and that's a good catch. So thank you.
It's my name I was looking for.
Yeah, of course. So it's the vote for chair and vice chair. Can you just, I believe Mr. Kamudi voted in the affirmative on
Affirmative
both.
on both.
So, especially since he did nominate Dave. So if there are no other corrections, can I get a motion to move the meeting minutes?
Motion.
I missed
Mr. Bernardo makes the motion. Can I get a second?
Second.
Who seconded that?
Mr. Lowe.
Mr. Lilly seconds. This is not a roll call, right? Everyone who votes to pass the meeting minutes, aye?
Aye.
Anyone against passing them?
I abstain.
And Mr. Katzoff abstains. Thank you. At this time, I will open public participation for anybody that has a question or comment on anything that they would like before we move back into the hearing. Seeing none, I will close public participation and we will move. We have no consistency determination this evening, Doc, so that I can skip through F and move right to G. and hand this meeting back over as a continuation from July 27th for application 2022-04 preliminary and final site plan for 1 Sunset Avenue, Block 303, Lot 1. Welcome, Mr. Inglesino.
Good evening, Madam Chair and members of the board and board professionals and the public. John Inglesino from the law firm of Inglesino Taylor on behalf of the applicant, Verona Sunset Urban Renewal LLC. As the board is aware, we concluded our testimony at the last meeting back on July 27th, and at that time there was a rather technical discussion between the engineers as to what your board engineer would need to be reasonably satisfied, I think, to recommend approval with conditions that are typical to applications such as this. I know there was communications between our respective engineers in that regard. There was a resubmission made by our engineer back on August 11th, and there was a review letter that was issued by Boswell on August 18th. And at this point, suffice it to say that the applicant will agree to comply with the remaining comments in that review letter to the reasonable satisfaction of the board's engineers as a condition of approval. One of those, with regard to the waste and wastewater comments, we would note just that those are appropriately addressed in connection with the TWA procedure, which is the manner in which those issues are typically addressed. So, I mean, we certainly, if there are any questions that the board has or the board engineer has, I know there was a discussion this morning. I defer to Mr. Massara on that, but that's where we feel we are at this point.
I'm sorry, I don't know if the mic is too far away from you. Usually you're very loud, and tonight you're just not. Can you just, I kind of didn't get what you're agreeing to. Can you just encapsulate?
Sure. So we can go through it. There's a letter, a review letter that was issued on August 18th. It's dated August 18th
yeah.
by Boswell. Okay. And that letter, I think, summarizes the issues that were open, shall we say, at the last board meeting. And the letter was written in response to the applicant's resubmission on August 11th. And so I'm looking at the August 18th letter and just going through them. We discussed the stormwater system review. The substantive comments really start, I guess, on page 3 of 6. And again, I'm sort of summarizing from the bottom of page 2 of 6, at the last paragraph, where the letter points out that the applicant provided testimony on pending issues, really engineering issues. And again, turning over on the next page, we made the resubmission on August 11th. And then the rest of the letter is really in response to that. And with regard to the seasonal high water table comment on A and B, the notation there is that no further action required. On A, the comment was that no further action required until soil borings are performed, which we know we have to do. And then upon the completion of the report, the applicant will add the results to the stormwater report and resubmit a new version of that document to be reviewed. We agreed to that. B was the stormwater runoff volume calculations, and that after reviewing the technical memorandums and HydroCAD models, it could be confirmed that the stormwater volume remained the same. So there was no further action required in that regard. In C, there was, I guess, some incorrect citations, which is really just, nothing substantive to do. It's a correcting of citations or notation in the report, which we will do. In D, which refers to the biodetention 2-foot separation, there was a memo that was prepared by the applicant's engineer, Mr. Savage, and your engineer asked that that be incorporated into the stormwater management report and into the maintenance plan, which the maintenance plan we have to do as a condition of approval that gets recorded. We'll agree to do all of that as requested. The bioretention hydrocad modeling was performed. I know there was some dialogue as to having that resubmitted, which was done prior to this meeting. I don't know that your board engineer, and I don't mean to speak for him, he can certainly do that or defer to Mr. Becerra, but my understanding is that that is being reviewed. If it needs to be tweaked as a condition of approval, we will do so following the direction of the board engineer, so long as he's reasonable, and we have no reason to believe that he won't be. So that's addressing the hydrocad modeling. With regard to the bioretention basin details, there's a number of items here which, I mean, I'll characterize as cleanup, but we will comply with all of those. The action was address and resubmit. Yes, we will do that. E was the assessment of the existing stormwater sewer capacity. And again, there it's referenced that no further action is required. And with regard to the water and wastewater system review comments, we will comply with that, and we have to comply with that as part of the TWA, or Treatment Works Approval process, in which the town engineer has to sign off on both capacity and conveyance. So this is work that will necessarily be done in connection with that process, and we understand that that's in the normal, ordinary course of things. So, I mean, if anyone has anything to add, or if I missed anything, I apologize, but I think that kind of brings us, from our perspective, to sort of the conclusion of our case.
Do you have anything to add, either of our professionals?
I mean, apart from the after review, as you correctly said, I mean, we spoke this morning. If something comes up, it's just, I mean, I would consider that to be minor changes and would not affect the final result of the flow coming into, I mean, discharging into Sunset and Bloomfield. And one of the things that probably, that's when you're performing the sanitary analysis, maybe you may want to install also a rain gauge. So you may also measure whether you have inflow and infiltration I&I into your sanitary. You may want to make sure that if something happens, it's not because of the flow that you're producing, but because of the stormwater going into the sanitary, so you can cover yourself.
Gotcha, yeah. Thank you.
Just for the board's edification, Mr. Messino and I were on a call with Mr. Tenkate and Dr. Gonzalez and Sean this morning, and we believe we closed all the open-ended engineering questions. My job obviously is to make sure that our professionals are satisfied, and our professionals certainly are satisfied with certain conditions that obviously will be memorialized into the resolution. But retaining jurisdiction and then the modeling was the last potential issue, although Dr. Gonzalez does not believe that it will be an issue, but if in fact he determines that it's a material issue, that would have to come back to the board. But, the engineers have agreed on the methodology, on the numbers. I think it's just the math that has to be, well, whatever, I'm not an engineer, but Dr. Gonzalez has reserved the right to review it more thoroughly. But other than that, it appears that all of the engineering issues are satisfactory from our professional standpoint.
On stormwater.
Stormwater, all engineering
And-
issues.
Mr. Massera, I'm
Yes.
sorry, Mr. Massera, who all was on the call?
Dr. Gonzalez, Mr. Tenkate, Mr. Savage, Mr. Messino, and myself.
Thank you.
So just to clarify, there are two potential reasons that you would come back to the board. One, if the modeling changes the runoff quantities to an extent that's not acceptable and no longer within compliance, we come back to the board. And secondly, if when you do your soil borings or your test pits and you find that the seasonal high water table is actually at a much higher elevation than you had expected, you'll have to redo that and come back to the board. So those are the two conditions that would reconvene this meeting.
Well, those are two, there's going to be many conditions, but I said I don't want to limit it, right? But
Well,
if we
two-
couldn't satisfy those two conditions or others, then.
Right.
Could
yeah,
be any.
It
Right,
could be
right.
any condition.
Right.
Then there may be a necessity to come back before the board. And if we did that, that would obviously be on notice to the public and to property owners within 200 feet. And effectively, at that point, the hearings would be reopened. We don't envision that to be the case, but it could be the case as in any application.
So are we going to carry this meeting?
No, no.
But were there any details that Mr. Savage wanted to speak about from any of the submissions that he made? He made site plan submissions with a memo that went with it. Was there anything on there that hadn't been discussed at last month's meeting? I know you went into the wall and the change of the transformer, et cetera, at the last meeting. Was there anything that you wanted to touch on that?
No, and first of all, Mr. Savage, you understand you're still under oath, correct?
He didn't answer me, so.
Just say no, I do.
And your professional credentials are the same as they were when you were qualified to be a witness, right?
Yes, sir.
And you don't have anything further to add this evening, do you?
I do not.
Okay, thank you.
Chair, I just have a question on the engineering numbers, the pre and post hydrographs and with the Delmarva and the standard. So looking at them, I see like, they hit the same start and end peaks. The peaks are slightly, there's a difference.
Yes.
The difference with the standards, and that has to do with, I think, the peak. It looks like they hit the same spot. Is that difference like better or worse or irrelevant, like based on the two standards? I guess I'm pointing to I'm asking the engineers.
Gonzalez?
Yeah.
Dr. Gonzalez?
We're happy to let Dr. Gonzalez answer the question.
Yeah, I realize I pitched to the wrong guy there.
I mean, it's what happens is that the way the two hydrographs, meaning the Marva and the standard, they actually what they do is they distribute the rainfall differently. So one reaches the peak sooner, but also decreases sooner, while the other it has a delay. But when you actually calculate the volume, which is the area below the graph, which is the hydrograph, it comes to be the same.
Okay.
It's just the way the rainfall is distributed.
Right. And the curves are, I mean, on the 100-year, they're quite different, I guess. Yeah. Okay, I see. But there's like no material difference into like.
Changed it to standard.
Yeah, no, I see that. And did things, improve for the applicant, or did it stay the same, or like, because they're not identical. So I want to know if, what's the difference in real life.
What they want to manage the outflow, whatever the inflow is. That's
Right.
the end, the main objective of this. So to do so, they need to provide detention. So detention is based on an amount of water, meaning volume, that you need to store so that you can actually attenuate the peak flow. So that since the volume didn't change much, what happens as a result of that, the detention basin they designed didn't change much either.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, that's fine. Just a lot of talk, I wanted to understand. Thank you.
Does anybody else have any questions from any of the submissions that were handed in? Any questions for either our engineers or Mr. Savage?
Question for Mr. Messere, like,
Okay.
what is the whole list of, what do you call it, conditions? You know, do we have the running list, or is that next?
Well, yeah, and first, I want to say that I don't know that anybody on this board realizes how much time and effort that your chair puts forth in this stuff, but it's really incredible. So she makes my job a lot easier, I can say that, but.
I need a spot there.
Thanks, thanks, Chair.
But in any event, there is, Mr. Tenkate had prepared a preliminary list of conditions, and then the chair has added to that list, and I have compared the list to my notes, and I think it's comprehensive. I believe it's everything captured, but I sent it late this afternoon to Mr. Lucino. When we pass if the board votes on this evening, which I expect it will, one of the blanket conditions will be, and that the applicant will meet all other conditions that were represented during the course of testimony. And it'll give us an opportunity then, once we collaborate on the conditions, to make any additions that would have to be necessary that would be incorporated into the resolution. So I have a list, I think there's a couple redundancies in here, but I have a list of 38 conditions. Well, no, I added one during the dialogue tonight, the rain gauge. So, John, do you want me to just go ahead and read them, or I guess it's really up to the chair, but...
Well, we haven't, I mean, respectfully, just make this suggestion.
Yeah.
I mean, we haven't had an opportunity to review all of them yet. I have no reason to believe that these aren't exactly what they
I
are.
watched every video, it was
If-
painstaking, and I was angry at the end of watching every single one. So I did take notes from the videos just to ensure that if something was missed,
Sure.
maybe I could catch it.
Like I said, I have no reason to believe, I mean, if you want to just,
I think we need to read them out loud for the board's edification and for yours.
yeah, it's up to you. Obviously, any resolution would be memorialized, and these may change or be tweaked, or there may be added conditions too.
Well, I think it was just saying including but not limited to
Yeah,
these conditions.
yeah.
And so if you have an objection to any of these, it's probably a good time tonight to have a discussion.
Exactly.
But I think they,
Well, I can, I just haven't,
no,
I
I'll
don't
go
have.
through them.
Yeah, but I haven't had input from our
No,
professionals.
I understand, but I don't think there's going to be anything that
You don't think there's anything objectionable?
objectionable.
Okay.
I mean, I think this is all through my note, have been confirmed with my notes. Mr. Tenkate has, prepared the preliminary list, and then the chair has added some. So
Okay.
I think just, it probably suits everybody if we just go through them. Number one, no units will be rented short-term for Airbnb by management owners or lessees. That was represented by the applicant. Then,
Do we want to limit that, I'm sorry, do we want to limit that only to Airbnb? Do we need language that's, for
Short-term,
rentals in general?
next,
Short-term rental.
number two, no units will be sublet by management owners or lessees. Is that good enough?
Well, I just wanted to make sure.
If that's right.
The first one was not.
No, that's
Airbnb,
right,
it's not
exactly,
home.
right,
No,
okay.
you said short-term or Airbnb.
Short-term or Airbnb, okay. 3, no left turn onto Sunset Avenue from the driveway and no right turn into the driveway from Sunset, and that's the main driveway. 4, applicant will add sidewalks along Sunset Avenue to provide for safe pedestrian traffic. 5, applicant will add ADA-compliant curb ramps for the addition of the planned sidewalks at the intersection of Sunset Avenue and Afterglow Ave and Sunset Avenue and Bloomfield Ave, and to the entrance driveway to the site on Sunset Ave. Number 6, there'll be a 6-month review of site lighting, period. I don't think I'm dictating. There'll be a 6-month review of site lighting. The applicant will install light shields as per testimony and to accommodate any future potential residential lighting issue.
I'm sorry, I didn't understand it.
And will accommodate all potential residential lighting issues.
I mean, if they come up, like, once the place is
Yes.
operational,
Yes.
right? Yeah, because we had some sort of
Yeah,
follow-up.
just in the agreement of cooperation.
Thank you.
Number 7, all utilities will be installed underground. Number 8, there shall be no outdoor grills or dining areas in the outdoor courtyards. Number 9, the parking garage to have fewer suppressive sprinklers. Now, that's something let's circle 9 and we'll circle back to that, John.
That was Mr. Tenkate
Yep.
from Mr.
Okay, we'll circle back.
Fire suppression.
Fire suppression sprinklers, right, but that's kind of,
Fewer?
it's kind of vague, so let's go back I'm sorry? Right. Oh, I'm sorry, okay,
You actually
fire,
sent me,
okay,
it was sent to me with fewer. I'm like, that sounds like dangerous.
okay. That's why I said, let's go back to it, because it says, right,
So fewer should.
yeah, you
be
wrote
fine.
fewer suppressive sprinklers is what you're, right, okay.
Okay.
All right, so the parking garage is going to have fire suppression sprinklers. Okay, right, that's why we don't have to come back to it. Number 10, applicant will comply with the electric vehicles model ordinance, and at a minimum have 1 EV handicap parking space and 1 EV regular space on each floor of the parking garage.
And whatever.
Okay,
additional-
would you let me do it?
Okay. It's tough.
And as per the applicant's testimony, whatever additional spots that are required by law on each garage level. Number 11, the applicant will relocate the transformers so as to reduce the wall height and thereby reduce the size, and therefore will have to reduce the size of the dog run to mitigate the retaining wall height. The fence on top of the wall will be set back 3 feet from the face of the wall, and final approval will be subject to the board engineer. 12, the applicant will conduct a sanitary sewer capacity analysis by performing a 4-week flow monitoring at a manhole immediately downstream of the location where the applicant plans to tie into the township sanitary sewer system. The applicant will submit a capacity analysis. This analysis is to be submitted prior to the township endorsing a TWA application for development. Editorial, the applicant has to do that, and Mr. Tenkate has indicated to me on numerous occasions, and it is basically, the process is that the town council has to endorse the TWA, and the TWA cannot be endorsed unless this capacity analysis is performed. So that'll be in the hands of the engineering department. And if there is a problem, the applicant has to come, that'll be one of the conditions that the applicant will have to address and to this board's satisfaction. If not, first to the engineer's satisfaction, the engineer will decide if it's material.
Not to this board.
Well,
TWA.
to TWA and then to the engineer's satisfaction, correct. But if there is a redesign, then you would have to come back here, obviously. 13, the applicant will conduct a hydraulic hydrant flow test to assess if the flow available meets the fire flow demand. This has to be done prior to the certificate of occupancies being issued, in standard practice. 14, the applicant will provide an analysis of existing and proposed water demand as per Boswell's letter of June 1st, 2023. 15, the applicant will comply with all terms of the redevelopment agreement, including being responsible for costs, if expenses are incurred, if a new water allocation agreement is required, with the Passaic Valley Water Commission to meet the demand for the development.
Well, that we object to.
All right, we'll go back to,
Yeah.
let's circle it and we'll go back.
That
Okay,
was never.
let's get through what we
Yeah.
agreed to so we can at least accomplish something. 16, the applicant will comply with the landscaping recommendations of Boswell Engineering and the Planning Board, and will meet all of the representations that the applicant made during the public hearing with regard to landscaping. That was 16, we're going back on 15. Okay, 17, the applicant will install fully automatic underground landscape irrigation system. 18, applicant will provide a landscaping performance bond and a 2-year landscaping maintenance guarantee. 19, the approval would be subject to the Verona Fire Department locating and agreeing with the applicant of the standpipe connections. Recall that was testimony.
Standpipe, the same thing as where the pumper truck connects?
Yes, fire department connection.
Yeah.
Okay.
20, the applicant will resubmit the stormwater management plan addressed memorandum 05 from Boswell Engineering dated July 25th, 2023. 21, the applicant will perform soil tests between January and April 2024 at the location of the proposed basins A and B to verify that the applicant's assumptions in the stormwater design are compliant with the NJDEP BMP manual. The applicant will resubmit stormwater management report for review and approval for compliance, and if required by the, well, we can't say if required by the planning board. If required by our engineers, the applicant will present an updated stormwater management report and system for the engineer's approval.
And possibly for the board
If the engineer decides that it's material, just like in any condition,
Right.
that it would come back to the board. Okay. This might be redundant. Applicant will comply with the township redevelopment plan. 23, all LED luminaires shall have a color temperature not exceeding 3,000 degrees. 3,000 degrees?
3,000 Kelvin.
Kelvin, okay. However, the landscape architect will, well, I don't want to say that, not exceeding 3,000 degrees. Applicant has said they will make an earnest effort to reduce that to 2,700. 24, applicant will submit copies of all will serve letters to the township upon receipt. 25, the applicant will comply with the infrastructure improvements as set forth in Boswell's June 1st, 2023 memo, number 20. 26, the applicant will replace all of the fencing on site with new fencing. The applicant will submit a style of fencing, some kind of rendering of the style of fencing to the board's engineers for approval.
Just to stop on that, did you specify what sort of fencing? Did you say that you were just going to put the metal fencing?
My recollection is we did specify the fence.
Did you?
Yeah,
You said you did. Can you just
the
remind
plan,
us?
so there's.
It's on the site plan,
There's
right?
different types yes, there's different types, like the fence adjacent to the courtyards and on top of the retaining walls will be the shorter chain link, but the fence around the outside, we call that out as a board on board, the slats.
So it's going to be like, so you could peek sideways and see a little bit through?
I guess,
Okay.
it's a shadow box, they call it too.
Okay, so it's all going
It's a
to be wood
decorative fence.
or plastic? Like the fiber, I don't know what it's called.
I would have to look at the detail, but I think it's a PVC.
Okay.
It's typically, but it's
And
on, we have a detail on the site plans for that.
Is it planned to be white or is it planned to be dark, like a dark brown
Black
to
was
mix
the
in?
testimony, I believe. The chain link
Like a
was
dark-
black. I
The
believe.
black, the
Right.
chain link, the board on board typically would either be a wood, if it's wood, natural color. A lot of times it is white, but I mean, if there's any other kind of preference, but.
I know this sounds like I'm a stickler for details on this, but that's what neighboring properties are going to see,
Yeah.
right? So I am sort of concerned, but Does anybody have
What's
any?
your- what's your preference?
offer on that? What's that?
What's your preference?
Well, that's why, Chair, I said to be subject to the engineering review, and then when they saw a rendering, then it could perhaps be filtered among the board, and the board could decide. Yeah.
Well, no.
Right.
Look, there's somebody that lives at 15 Afterglow, that's right there. He's going to be staring at that fence every day. I just, I know, I want to make it,
So either have it the board-on-board wood or have
What
it
do you-
composite so that it's more sufficient to withstand the weather.
Something composite wouldn't need as much maintenance and would look better over
Lower
time.
maintenance.
what would,
Something composite.
right, but would you say like a dark colored composite?
I would say darker rather than
I
a
would-
white vinyl.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's like a
Absolutely.
dark brown composite would
Yeah,
be,
we'll do an earth colored deposit or earth tone composite,
okay.
if that's okay.
We'll add that to condition 26. The entire site fencing will be replaced with new fencing. The fencing around the property will be earth-colored composite. That's the 6-foot fencing, correct, Mr. Messina?
the perimeter.
This is the perimeter. Yes, yes.
That's correct.
Number 27.
Thank you.
The garage will be sprinkled with a Type 13 system. Number 28, there will be no cellular tower leases permitted on the site, either in Montclair or Verona. Number 29, all signage lighting will only be backlit and have no other accessory lighting. Number 30, there will be balcony provisions on the 4-unit on the southeast/west side of the buildings as depicted on architectural site plan sheet A2 dated 5/5/23. 31, the applicant will comply with the Verona Fire Department, I think this may be redundant, on the final locations of the water connections, which are the standpipes, to the building, and all fire hydrant locations, we can add that, okay? Number 32, all rooftop HVAC units that are visible to the surrounding streets will be appropriately screened. 33, the applicant will provide the township with a recycling plan according to Town Ordinance Section 446-9. Number 34, the applicant will deed restrict and record all stormwater utilities on site that perform green infrastructural BMPs in accordance with Town Ordinance 445-14N. I'm sorry, 455, and O, and 455-20B5 and 7B. 35, the landscape architect plans will be revised to include the caliper of all trees to be planted on site. 36, the applicant will enhance the buffer zones by planting additional evergreen trees in the proximity of 15 Afterglow and any other areas where sparse plantings appear to need more trees. The board will rely on the good faith of the applicant for the other areas, but there was specific representation that 15 Afterglow would be addressed. 37, the applicant will relocate transformers from the side of the site. I think this is redundant, right? Okay, so we'll skip 37. A new 37 will be that the applicant will engage or use a rain gauge to measure the levels of rain when
To allow whether the existing sanitary system. Yeah.
Okay. When conducting the sanitary sewer tests.
One other thing that was in old number 37 that we just nixed
Right.
versus the first iteration of that was, I believe, Mr. Savage agreed to screen in front of the street side transformers
Yeah, yeah,
with some kind of planting.
right.
That's fine.
That's
Okay, I
not
left that
written
out,
into the
right.
first.
Okay, okay.
Go ahead.
I had a couple that I had in my notes that don't think got caught in there.
Sure.
The applicant agreed to provide booster pumps for domestic and fire water if required. At the issue of approval, the applicant also agreed that the backup generator would have sound attenuating housing.
Okay, actually, the booster pump, is that not included in the fire department fund allocations?
No,
Okay,
that's-
the booster-
there's inadequate,
okay.
there's
Got it,
inadequate
okay.
pressure for
Okay.
either domestic water or the fire water.
Okay, good job, okay.
Now, can we make a note on that, that it's for now or in the future? If a problem begins to exist in the future?
Well, I think that would be a regulation that they would have to,
For the booster pumps? Yeah.
yeah, that would be covered by administrative.
What is the second one?
You got the one, the generator would be, would have a sound attenuating housing.
Right.
That's funny.
The roof generator, right?
Yeah. The ones on the roof.
One I didn't check off.
So, Mr. Lucino, is the only objection number 15?
Well, again, this is at first blush because we haven't had a chance
Right.
to review these with the professionals, but there's a few that come to mind. In number 8, it says no outdoor grills or dining areas in the outdoor courtyards. That's not correct. We will have grills in the courtyards. We will not have grills on any of the balconies. So there will be an opportunity for people who live there to grill in a common area grill area on the ground floor in the courtyards.
I
But
thought the testimony was that there'd be no grills out there.
That
No.
was from your landscape architect.
Yeah, I would agree with the board. You did a condition that you would not have grills.
Did she not say?
And also, I think the applicant said no grills.
I believe the applicant himself said that there would be no grills.
I think it's well, so I'm conferring with my client. He's saying on the courtyard that faces Afterglow. I don't recall that
The
testimony.
courtyard near Afterglow would not have a grill.
Correct.
That's what I recall. The applicant himself, Mr.
Yeah, that's true, but this says none of the courtyards.
Okay.
So that would be the passive courtyard, because there was one passive and
Right,
one
yes.
Right,
so-called
okay.
active.
Yeah.
No grill in the passive courtyard was the testimony.
Correct.
Right, right.
So the two courtyards with the pool,
Pool, I mean,
because the passive courtyard the passive courtyard faces Bloomfield Avenue.
Well,
No, it does
It's in the
not.
back, or it's labeled on the print, passive.
Yeah, let me have Mr. Savage speak to it just so we,
So the,
This is mislabeled, this is the one they're talking
the
about.
display isn't working, but
which way
the,
are we looking? Are we looking at the frontage of the building?
so I'm looking from, if you want to look from Sunset towards the building.
Yes.
The first courtyard, which will be behind the building at that point, is a passive courtyard.
Wait a minute, is that, we're looking at the building. Are we looking at the back left?
Yes,
That's closest to Bloomfield Avenue.
correct.
That's the passive courtyard.
Yes,
So
correct.
no grills there for some reason.
I thought it was the opposite. I thought the
It-
passive courtyard was closer to
Yeah.
the loop.
No, that one is a passive courtyard.
What is the one on the right side that's closer to Afterglow called?
Courtyard.
Yeah, that one's just courtyard.
And that's where there would be no grills, is that correct?
So just courtyard has no grilling, but passive?
no.
No, what they're saying is the passive courtyard
There's no grill.
was no grill. And that faces Bloomfield Avenue at the top of the hill behind that building that's on Bloomfield Avenue.
Yes.
I mean, I'm almost
The
thinking,
two,
Like, they should flip that.
right now what's proposed are the two courtyards, the passive one closest to Sunset and the one with the pool, it's the middle one, would have outdoor
Don't
grill.
say closest to Sunset.
correct.
closest to Bloomfield Avenue. As you're facing hold on, as you're facing the building, there is a courtyard on the left, which would be closer to Bloomfield Avenue. There would be one in the middle, which has the pool, and there would be one on the right that orients to Afterglow. The one on the right that orients to Afterglow would have no grills.
So just the plain old courtyard will have no grills. The passive courtyard is going to be hopping with grills. And that's the one near Bloomfield Avenue, and the pool courtyard will have grills.
Correct, but the courtyard closest to Afterglow will not have grills.
I think that's acceptable. I don't know if anybody.
That's acceptable. The two courtyards in the back have a very, very large buffer
Right.
to any residence or any even apartment units back there, where the other one is close proximity to the house on Afterglow.
I agree.
So I think that's,
So the regular
The proper
courtyard
way to do
closest to the single-family residences will have no grill.
Yes,
Okay. so-
correct.
Right.
Yeah, number 15, well, number 11, we will agree to relocate the transformers. Of course, we have to coordinate that with the power company, so
Right.
we're kind of subject to what they say. I think there was
That was
testimony,
testimony.
I think the testimony was that we should have some latitude there, and hopefully we do. And if we do, we'll,
And I'm just adding that they'll be screened with,
yes, no objection to that.
okay, at least fronting the street.
No objection to that.
Okay.
In number 15, the applicant will not be paying expenses in connection with Verona obtaining water, which it represented that it had at the time of the settlement agreement. And respectfully, that's not an issue for the board. That is an issue between the applicant and the municipality, and it's an issue that we will deal with. That is very ultra-virus of the board. I think Mr. Becerra would agree with that, but I would say, Madam Chair, nice try.
I didn't even write that one.
All right.
I know that you.
Mr. Messina, just so the board knows, the township has the obligation to provide infrastructure services and water utilities for local utilities.
It does.
It does, I mean, so we're going to leave that compliance with the redevelopment agreement.
Yes. Right.
Right.
In terms of the performance bond, my only objection is that the performance bond is in connection with the developer's agreement, which is between the municipality and the applicant. We have no objection in principle to the performance bond. It's just not an issue for this board. It'll probably be requested in the developer's agreement, and we'll be okay with that, but it's not something for this
We're
board to.
just folding it in.
Well, it's not appropriate for the board. I mean, I can represent.
Well, we don't have to get into it because you're agreeing.
Yeah.
But when the board has jurisdiction over a variance, I think the board can ask for other conditions that it might not.
I just don't want to have inconsistencies between what a developer's agreement may provide and what
Well,
the board.
the developer's agreement is going to call for 2 years, right?
If it does and it's a redundancy, I
All right, well, why
don't
don't we
care.
just say, to protect this board, just.
Just say whatever is agreed to in the developer's agreement.
Right, that's fine.
Yeah,
The
we'll agree to it in the developer's
Yeah.
agreement. We have no problem with that. It's not a substantive.
Right.
I think in number 21, we corrected what says if required by the planning board to the engineer.
Yes.
Correct? It says compliance with the town and applicant's redevelopment plan in 22. The applicant doesn't have a
I
redevelopment
only
plan.
read township and I left out applicants.
Yeah, so,
Right.
I mean, except as approved by the application, I think we have 3 minor deviations from.
Which we'll get to.
Yeah, and then, so otherwise, yeah, of course, because that's the equivalent of the zoning. We will submit the will serve letters. I just want to say, if received, we don't always receive those, even if we request them, but we will request them. We'll have to go back in 25 and review Boswell's 6/1/2023 memo. I have no.
Read it to you?
No, I have to have our professional team and client read it, so I can't on the spot give you okay. I have no reason to believe that that would not be acceptable. I'm just saying that I've got to have the folks read that. Fencing, we discussed. In 28, it says no cellular tower leases will be permitted on the site. I think Mr. Becerra mentioned Montclair or Verona. We have no plans on cellular towers. I just don't know how Verona can regulate property on Montclair.
What are you citing now?
Number 28, it says no cellular tower leases will be permitted on this site.
Right.
And then Mr. Becerra ad-libbed in,
I wrote it.
Well, no.
it's not on what I have,
Ad-libbed, right,
Yeah.
either in Verona or Montclair.
or Montclair. I don't know
So
how you can.
we can't impose any restrictions on Montclair.
Right.
But you can agree not to do something in Montclair, just like if we asked that you not do it in North Arlington.
No, we don't care. We don't care. Yeah.
When he's done, Madam Chair, I have one other.
Right. John, let's go back to number 25. Okay, I know you don't want to go through it, but I think this is important.
Yeah.
We had talked about, hopefully it'll jog your memory, Boswell 6123 memo talked about the infrastructure improvements. And it says, redeveloper acknowledges that certain infrastructure improvements, all items listed in this section 4.3 collectively may be necessary in connection with the implementation of the project.
I need you to say okay.
In accordance with the settlement agreement and redevelopment plan, redeveloper, at redeveloper's sole cost and expense, shall provide all necessary engineering studies for and construct and install all municipal infrastructure and capacity enhancements or upgrades required in connection with the provision of water, sanitary sewer, and stormwater sewer service to the project.
Well, there was a question there, and again, I mean, if, to the extent that Verona has a deficiency that impacts the project, obviously, the applicant is not fixing Verona's problem.
Correct.
To the extent, as long as that's qualified by, as required by the municipal land use law, I'm okay with it, because that verbiage raises questions and ambiguities and vagueness as to whether or not it's intended for the applicant to fix township-wide problems or upgrade the township's infrastructure as opposed to what's required for our site. There's a difference. And those issues are regulated by the MLUL. And obviously, we're agreeable to that. So I would want that type of language qualified by...
Well, my only question, I don't disagree with what you have said, but this says in accordance with the settlement agreement and the redevelopment plan. Now, do you recall in the settlement agreement of any promises of the redeveloper to pay for these?
No, and listen, look, if anybody thinks that we're going to play wordsmithing so that somehow, and I'm not suggesting you do, I'm just telling you that we're not going to agree to language that is going to be vague or could be used to try to pass on Verona costs to the developer. So I just want everything to be clear that it's qualified by the MLUL. That's all. I don't think that's unreasonable. I think that's what it is. I know that's the law, and we will agree to that. But we just don't want that language to be construed as meaning something far broader than what the municipal land use law provides.
Yeah. Can we,
Wait a minute.
we can go back and address that. Let's just keep going, anything else, and then we'll go back.
We're going to come back to this.
Right.
Just if you don't mind.
And then, was there anything else?
I mean, there's nothing else that comes to mind. Again, we received this, as Mr. Massara said, very late this afternoon. I do not have any comments from, my client or its professionals with regard to this list. We've been through it. You've been very kind to read through it and to hear at least some preliminary feedback. What I can represent to you is we will, review it and get back to you, immediately. But other than the comments made, at least I don't see anything here that comes to mind that would be objectionable. And there may be a few conditions that still need to be added based upon the review of the record, which candidly we would like included because we use these conditions as a resolution compliance checklist. So understand that from the applicant's perspective, even though we have the catch-all language in there, which is correct, it's just a lot easier from a resolution compliance perspective to have them all spelled out. So I'm not suggesting that these aren't a comprehensive list, although I do note that Councilman Roman found a few that the chairwoman did not,
I think
upon reviewing the video, but we'll leave that aside.
Booster pump I thought was included in the file. And then, Mr. Messina, there's a waiver. Your sheet sizes were max 2436. You submitted 30 by 42. That's no problem. Right. And then two variances, front yard parking, where the two spots encroach into the front yard setback, and the wall height in the front yard is greater than 4 feet with the 3-foot fence.
I think there were three.
I believe the other one was going to be modified because the dog run was going to be moved.
Because you moved the transformers and you revised the walls so that they're,
Right.
according to what Mr. Savage's testimony was at the last meeting, there was no necessity for,
So I think the three that I have, and I discussed this with Mr. Savage earlier today, we have the parking in the front yard.
Right.
We have the retaining wall near the garage entrance at the looped driveway, which is needed to maintain, there's an existing tree there that you wanted to maintain, as well as to maintain the landscape, the integrity of the landscape buffering area. And then the last one was the wall at Basin C, and that had to do with the fact that we had to put the fence on top of the wall.
Right.
And under your ordinance, the fence adds to the distance.
Well,
so
that's
that-
the 7 feet, right?
That added a couple of feet, and that would trigger the technical variances. So those were the three that I have.
how tall is the wall by Basin C?
The wall's like in the 2 to 3 foot range. It's not a tall wall, but you add the 4-foot fence on top, and we're getting to that 7 feet or so, about 6 feet, I think it is. So we're just kind of hitting that
We're
variance.
just above it.
What is the linear footage of that wall? Is it a long wall or?
The portion that's high, it's, it's probably in like the 50-foot range or something like that. It's just huge, really, the one part that kind of faces down.
Did you say 15, 1-5?
5.
Yeah, 50.
I mean, that's like, it doesn't seem possible because you're talking about right near, can you show us on a map, on your site plans real quick?
So I won't be able to show you because the
50 feet, yeah. Where is,
I have a set of the plans if you
Where is
need the
Basin
hard
C?
copy.
The basin's on the south side.
Your plans are uploaded on the site, revision number 5, on Verona's website. If you want to just go there and open them up,
I have
pull
the
up your
plans.
geometry.
We have the
plan.
plans,
Sheet 5.
we're having technical
No,
difficulties.
I have the plans, I just don't have a projector. I don't have-
What sheet are you referring to when the location? What sheet is the wall pick?
This is the grading and drainage plan in sheet 6 of the most recent set. And the wall is on the south side of the building. It's near that courtyard area.
The one with no grill?
Correct. So this wall here, maybe, looking at that, I don't have the, obviously, scale, but it might be a little less than 50 feet here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Doesn't-
But it's not 15 feet, but that wall part that is running, kind of faces down towards Afterglow would be the section that you're starting to hit that height of the wall once you add in the 4-foot fence.
So are you saying from the bottom of the retention basin to the top, there's a 50-foot wall?
no, length, lineal foot.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Yeah. So I'm just looking at the height in that area. The height of the wall is in a range of, 2 to 3 foot. You add the fence in, that triggers it.
Yes.
Jack, did you have
3 foot, yes, I have one.
you have?
Yeah, it's 4 foot on one side, the side closest to the building.
I don't know. You don't have internet?
So 4 foot, yes, so there's a variance, it's 7. You're only putting a 3-foot
You
fence
logged in?
on top.
What's that?
They're only putting a 3-foot fence on
Correct.
top, not 4. We good with it?
Thank you. I mean, my whole look on my computer. Yeah. Page 6. So is the wall that's in front of the basin?
Yes.
So when you're on that slope looking uphill, there's a little bit of that wall that's going to be exposed. That might 3 foot-ish. I think it gets a little over 3 foot in one corner, and it's down like 2 foot on the other. I mean, we can attempt
How many foot, 4 foot?
4 foot fence, correct? And that's what kicks us over, obviously.
Yes.
And barely still.
Is there a code reason why the fence needs to be 4 foot in that area? Is that a requirement or?
I think we could go down to 42 inches. We could take out 6 inches, but we're still gonna, I think just to be on the safe side, I still think we're gonna have that.
Is that fence for fall protection into the basin or what is the purpose of that fence?
Anytime you have a wall that's over 30 inches, it's gotta have a fence.
Okay.
So any place where that wall is that height, we have it.
Okay. And I would basically say if permitted, I would be willing to grant the variant, I would say if permitted by code, if they could shrink the fence down to 42, that might mitigate, then you're maybe 6 inches over the height of the.
Yeah, it obviously gets us closer and less of it would trigger that, obviously, yeah. I don't think there's an issue with that.
No end around.
Well, no, because that's sunset down there, and that's Africa.
And this would be a black chain link fence?
Correct. Which is good, so it kind of disappears out.
I knew we were on Sunset. I was thinking this was okay.
I don't see a way around this without changing things of the design that probably couldn't be changed. I mean, I don't see a way around this.
I don't either.
Right. And that's why I'm kind of thinking that sort of the happy medium on this is if they can do a 42 inch. And it's going to be black chain link. I guess that's the question is what else can we do here if we want to stand
up there, cover that ugly chain link. But that's where, it's on your site. I mean, there's going to be nice plantings.
I mean, there is landscaping from the landscape plan in that area. We already, I think, talked about some additional buffering in that area.
I mean, if the wall is up high and it's visible all over the place, maybe prettify it.
Yeah, listen, we will landscape around the basin wall and to mitigate, impacts of the variance. We can add that as another condition.
So are we with shall reduce to 42 inches if permitted by code?
Yes.
Is that okay? And
Yeah, we'll reduce it if permitted by code and we'll
provide additional landscaping.
Correct.
And Jack?
Yeah, one other. We talked early on because this property, although part of it is in Montclair, it touches a road in Montclair. And I think I asked early on if we condition this that no access now or in the future be used for this site through Montclair, from Montclair.
Yeah, that's fine.
Fire Road, I think it is, right?
And Parkhurst. But it's steeply sloped, but
So what are the two road names, Jack?
I was
Parkhurst,
just going to say no access.
no access to Montclair.
Okay.
You don't want to name the roads, because
Yeah.
it might be restricted.
Could come up with different roads.
That's right.
They'll rename the road.
They rename it.
Yeah, I had two that I didn't hear mentioned. The first one was the height of the light poles on the top of the parking deck. Is that a term?
Well, those are,
Condition, that was part of the application.
yeah, those are incorporated into the plan.
Excellent. And then the second one was the covers between again, on the parking garage, the covers to reduce the light between the decks, the metal grating. Is that?
Those are also in the plan, that those lights would be shielded, and the illumination is in the conditions as well.
Okay.
So he mentioned not only shielding lights, but as Jack had added in, to put those grates up to sort of dumb down headlights that might be, and light flow out of that open side.
Yeah, those are on the plans.
putting the decorative.
The grades are on the plan.
Right.
Those are on the plans.
Good, yes, thank you.
Just confirming. Mr. Katsas, anything? You were satisfied with the additional space that was granted to the 3-bedroom unit? Okay. Mr. Bernardo, do you have any outstanding issues that you're?
No, I think pretty much covered it.
Okay. Mr. Diolo?
Everything's fine. Satisfied.
Mr. Kamudi?
Satisfied.
Nada. And anything?
38 of them, was pretty good. 38, actually.
Yes. Anything further down there?
Good. I'm good.
Gentlemen? Anything that we left out that you might? So those are the three listed, three or four listed variances.
Three variances.
Deviations or variances?
One deviation, 3 variances,
Okay.
or one waiver, 3 variances.
One waiver and 3 deviations. It's a redevelopment plan, so the nomenclature would be technically deviations, but they would, same thing.
Do the deviations require a grant by the township council, or can they be granted by the?
No, the board.
Site plan.
And what's the deviation?
It's variance.
Okay, then why are we
Because
renaming it?
technically.
It's technically in redevelopment.
We're not under the municipal land use law, we're under the redevelopment law, and technically under the municipal land use law, you can give variances, but there's case law that now makes it a gray area, and I think there's an overlap.
Does that make that more or less clear?
Basically, it doesn't
I don't
make,
think there's any clarity.
it doesn't make a difference.
Doesn't make a
It
difference.
doesn't make a
Okay.
difference.
I
It's a
refer to those
variation from the
variances.
application, it's a variation.
Variation from the standards in your redevelopment
The
plan.
standards, right.
One thing I did have a question about, because it was, hold on. Okay. Was there any conclusion on the potential for Title 39 for parking in the main driveway? That was brought up at the meeting on December 1st last year, and I believe our attorney brought it up as a potential question, and you said, do you really want to go to Title 39? I actually can quote you guys, I can act it out, but because that's how many times I watched the meetings.
Please perform. We'd like to.
What's the decision on that, or what's
I
the
believe,
thought?
I don't believe it was ever resolved.
It wasn't.
Well, I don't think that's not an issue for the planning board, because Title 39 applicability would be only granted by the municipality. It's not something that's granted by the planning board. If the municipality would like to take that up as part of the developers agreement, we'd be happy to have that conversation with them. But
I think we should, as much as I disagree with part of what Mr. Musino said, it still can be a condition that you have to obtain that approval.
well, suppose the municipality says we're not going to give you Title 39 applicability, and then we can't get a building permit? It's ridiculous.
No, but it could still be a condition of anybody's approval.
Well, no, because,
I'm not saying this-
but we can't comply, if we can't comply with the condition,
Well, what
and we
happens if the
can't,
Essex County Planning Board doesn't give you approval?
well, but this is the municipality. This is,
But no,
that's why I'm saying that it's my legal opinion is that it's ultra virus for this board to condition an approval on Title 39 applicability. The board doesn't have jurisdiction over those matters. The board's job and purview is to review site plans. It is not to determine what the municipality's rights are to ticket on a property once it is constructed. It's just not the board's purview, and we're not going to agree to it as part of the condition of this approval.
Well, wait a minute. First of all, we're not going there because it would be up to the municipality in this situation. But without wasting the board's time, the board has the right to impose conditions. on an application.
But not conditions that are ultra virus to its authority. And the board does not have the authority to regulate the use of the property once it's constructed. The board's authority is relegated to the approval of site plans. Title 39 has nothing to do with the site plan. Title 39 is something completely
You
different.
and I can have that discussion off the record, because I don't agree. I understand what you're saying. I don't believe it's ultra virus, but we can leave that for another day.
And historically, we have done this.
Because historically, we've done it, and many planning boards have done it. But this is up to, because there's a redevelopment agreement, it's going to be up to the council.
Yes, that I
If
agree.
they want to impose it or not. So I don't think this board should. But John, we'll have a good discussion on that after.
Mr.
whatever.
Chair,
Yes,
uh,
go ahead.
Can we make, because the resolution is part of the ultimate developers agreement, we could make a recommendation in that the council include that.
Yeah, which I don't think, the council's going to include it. I mean, I would guess anyway, but we could do that, absolutely. Yeah. That's a good idea.
I mean, the question was more,
Right.
it was more about whether it made sense or not.
Right.
And,
John wants to argue, we don't.
yeah, really, just stop. Hey, can we take, first of all, does anyone else have further additions to this list? Has anything popped up? You want to see a document?
Yes, we want to just look at that. I want to close that loose end on the,
Number 25.
number
I
25.
think it's.
So we want a couple minutes just so we can pull that document, and I want to talk to our engineers.
And Madam Chair, when you want to do general public comment, we usually do general public comment before we formally
Yeah, I
deliberate.
was going to, but we were going to take like a 3-minute break. So we're just going to take a 3-minute break so we can review something. Okay? It's the redevelopment, page 12, right here.
Oh, I know, that was a lot.
You're right here.
This is what, this is the.
Yes. And if you don't mind, we're on page 12. Going back to the very beginning of the document, so you can see.
So this is what it is, it's just right in a.
January 17th. Now we'll go back to page 12.
So that way when I go back and take it out, like go into this sleeve.
Okay. You have one of these, right?
I mean, I'm sure it'll be on when it's finally drawn up.
We want to run police department, some of the ticket, I'm thinking that.
Yeah.
Or a condominium complex where you have through roads, and it's ridiculous. Huh? Try to look at councils. The board doesn't have the power to impose it anyway. It's a municipal.
So that crossing my fingers, it helps out some.
Right, so we don't really, like you said, well, that's what we're gonna say. We'll comply with section 4.3 of the development. Or leave it out, like you said, it's already in the.
Yeah, she was upstairs.
They're trading in the secondary
Yes.
Just give me your email. I'll see if actually you can give it to me, because otherwise I would just wait until I get around to it. Because I'll see if you can send it to me.
Oh, are you? Good, how you doing? Oh, it should be got by. I'm not lying around on the couch like this. Oh, great, now get it. Nature of everyone's back.
But can we, so we are citing.
Just going to comply with all the requirements.
Okay. Then they can be.
Yeah, perfect.
You know, how to get started.
Structure will comply with paragraph 25.
Well, I just want to make sure that in section 4.
Point three.
Not limited to that.
No, it's just.
Right. Hey, guys. So which one are you missing? They're all outside. I think I saw you smile. There it is.
You got us.
You made it happen. I saw you said something funny. Feel back?
I am.
Okay.
Madam Chair, the condition 25, we're going to modify that, say the applicant will comply with section 4.3 of the redevelopment agreement as well as all other relevant sections of the redevelopment.
And any other conditions that might apply? So if there's nothing further from this, I'm sorry. If there's nothing further from the board, for the time being, I would like to open this to public participation.
Just as a point of order, Madam
Sure.
Chair, I guess, we'll just make this suggestion that procedurally.
Would you rather make your closing argument?
No.
first?
I guess you're right. It would be time for public comment because there really wasn't any additional testimony.
Correct.
So I stand corrected. So yes, this would be the appropriate time for public comment.
And just point in case, you were correct. He just wanted to argue.
I really don't. I really don't.
Okay.
Are you still sore about the comment I made about Councilman Roman?
No.
Okay.
Not at all.
I'm sorry. I apologize.
Did you get the reaction? I didn't notice.
So, may I proceed?
Sure.
Thank you. Okay, at this time, if there are no other objections, I would like to open the meeting to public comment. At this time, you may approach the mic, state your name and just your municipality, and you do not need to play Jeopardy and make questions. You can make comments. General, as laser focused as you want, whatever you would like to talk about on this application. If anybody would like to, please come up.
Chris Riley, I live in Verona.
Is that my phone?
You know what? Is there a way to move that pole up for yourself?
Unscrew it in the middle there, it'll, it should go up higher.
Not happening?
Or you just take the mic out.
Take the mic right out of the thing and
I don't want to break anything.
I think it slides right out.
Okay, is that better?
All right.
Chris Riley, I live in Verona. I guess first I'll start off. I had some comments, but I wanted to speak specifically about the conditions. I think it was number 3 that Mr. Mascara said was for the no right turn and no left turn. And I believe you indicated that it was for the main driveway, but I also believe that that is for the service entrance as well.
For either driveway.
Correct.
Okay,
That's for either.
I did say the main driveway, you're correct, so we'll stay corrected on that.
thank you. There was one other condition that came early on that I didn't hear anybody speak to, and perhaps it's in the landscape plan, but one of the residents who lives directly across the street on Sunset had asked that there was a rather nice evergreen or fir tree across the street that he had asked that they keep that, and I know the owner specifically said that they would agree to do that. I don't know if that's something that's in the plans or not, but if you can take a look at that as well.
We'll have to look, and Mr. Riley, what I had said earlier about the all-encompassing, all other representations contained in the...
Okay, yeah, that was important to the neighbor, I know, because
I
it was...
recall, but I'm not sure that I recall the actual results, so good point, we'll definitely address it.
Okay, all right, thank you. Okay, again, I've been going to all these meetings, so, have a lot of things to cover here today. Again, I appreciate all the concessions that have been made and all the conditions that were agreed to. And again, I had in my notes here, I hope we kept track, and obviously we did, so that was very good that we read over the list and everybody's on the same page there. I guess in general, my thoughts were that the architectural design, I thought that was very good. I know the architect is not here today, but I thought he really laid out a great plan that built this right into the hill and minimized the impact on the land itself. I know there's a lot of other issues, trees and things like that, but again, I did want to point out what I did like about it. The other concern that I had when this was going on was the water runoff, and again, it looks like it's all running towards Bloomfield Avenue, so that's a positive. I was concerned since I'm downhill that I was going to get a lot of water out of this project, and it seems like that concern's been minimized. Still, my biggest concern that has not been addressed is the traffic. I know that the traffic expert that was here, and he presented some thoughts and some observations. But I'll just say that for somebody who's lived there for over 20 years, and again, I did not sit out there and on a lawn chair and count cars and do anything like that, so I'm going to go through a lot of observations here. I'll just start off with right now, and I did a count, there's 145 homes in the Afterglow section, and with 200 more, that's 144% increase. There's only two ways in and out, and I guess there's actually a third way that, Mr. McAvoy mentioned before on Parkhurst, but I know that it's not a very popular street to go on because of it's very narrow and it's very bumpy, so I'll just leave it as there's really two ways to go in and go out. There's a lot of issues at the corner of Bloomfield and Sunset that I thought were, not considered. And, since we were only able to comment on the testimony, I'll just bring out the things that I think anybody in town that drives through that intersection over the years would know. First of all, that street, especially on some days in the year, there's an awful sun glare, especially in the morning. And if you're trying to get out and you see cars that look like they're not going to stop, your inclination, if you're trying to get out from Sunset onto Bloomfield, is that you stop and wait for those cars to stop because you don't want to get T-boned. There's other things that and again, I remember the testimony was that up to 10 cars could get out on the green light on Sunset. I have never seen 10 cars get out. I've often been in a line where there's like 5, 6 cars and not everybody gets out. So, I just see that this is going to be a big mess there. Another instance that I see happen a lot is that there is a crossing, I guess for the pedestrians that are trying to get across Bloomfield Avenue. You get about 20, 30 seconds of your own traffic light to cross, but not everybody waits for their time to, have the go on the, the whatever the right sign is on the traffic post there where you have the actual right of way. People go when the green light goes on, and as a car trying to turn left, for example, from Sunset onto Bloomfield, you have to wait for the pedestrians to clear, and by the time they clear, you're lucky if 1 or 2 cars gets out. You also at times have to wait for the intersection to clear out. Right now, and I know there's a lot of my fellow neighbors that go to the traffic committee and have talked about the bad traffic on the street and the impact that Waze and other apps have on how people are using Sunset as a cut-through street. But there's also times when it's your turn, the light turn, you're waiting on Sunset, the light turns green, and you have to wait for cars that are turning left from Bloomfield on the Sunset to clear out. And again, that just all, it all leads to, you're lucky if you get 3, maybe 4 cars out on a green light situation. And then I believe that this is rated a 2-minute interval for you. You only, I'm not sure what the letters are, but I think this is again, I'm going to stop here because I'm going to probably say the wrong thing, but I know that this intersection is designed so that there's minimal time for traffic to go out from Sunset onto Bloomfield. My point in bringing all this up is that all of the rules that have been said about cars turning in, especially moving vans or deliveries or even just traffic coming in and out of the development. I believe that the gentleman who was the owner or developer had indicated that based on other buildings that they've had, that this is not going to be a big deal either. There's not going to be that much traffic. But if it backs up, then the cars are going to back up on Bloomfield. It's just going to be a big mess. It's just a problem waiting to happen here. And again, traffic safety, pedestrian safety, I mean, that just all goes with it as well. So again, I know this is going to happen. I know that this is here, and this is just one of the things that we have to deal with. But it's just going to be a big mess here in terms of traffic, and I don't think that has been properly addressed during the course of these hearings. Just bear with me a second. So, one of the things, again, as I think about this in terms of solutions to these problems here, I guess there's only so much that police can do in terms of enforcing. There's going to be people that will turn left out onto Sunset or, go from Sunset and turn right into the development. And you just hope that the police can get the word out or to issue tickets or whatever and stop that as best they can. But it's not going to, be the answer that it's always going to be. I think, nobody expects that. But what we're hoping is that, that the town can work with Essex County to get a turning arrow put into the intersection of Sunset and Mount Prospect. That would certainly, as you think about there being a lot more traffic now that's going to go out from Sunset to Mount Prospect instead of Bloomfield, and likewise from Mount Prospect into Sunset. It'd be very helpful if you can, and I'm speaking to the two members of the council here, if you can use whatever influence you can to speak to Essex County about perhaps getting a turning arrow put in there. I know that's a rather old traffic light. I think there's a bumper sticker for Row for Governor on one of the traffic light stands. So, probably it's up for some type of work soon anyway. And if you could, see about the possibility of getting a turning arrow, that would be great. Appreciate it. Flooding. Again, I mentioned before about, I think that the plans have been very good in terms of the impact on flooding. Obviously, I live downhill from the development, and one of the concerns I had was whether there was going to be more water coming down. I've had to invest a lot of money in my home and in the property to get drains put in and sump pumps, to really deal with all the water that is coming down. It was bad before, and I just hope that it's not going to get worse. I also, I think that the plans right now, I know that the engineer and the two engineers, excuse me, have talked a lot about modeling. And again, I have worked with modeling in a previous job and insurance modeling, so it's a whole different world than what you're talking about. But we always did modeling that talked about what was almost like a break point, like where does it fail? And I know you've done these scenarios that just show like on 100-year rain event that it's going to pass. But I don't know in terms of, since I've been on the street, I think there's been several storms that are more than once in 100-year storms. Am I going to have to worry about if Hurricane Ida occurs again or the remnant of Hurricane Ida that occurred last year? Is it going to be one of these things that the system that's designed to take all the water and bring it down to Bloomfield Avenue is somehow going to fail? And as a result, are we down the street going to, have to deal with a lot more water coming down the hill? Same thing with sewage. I know that I don't have a problem, but neighbors a few houses down from me have problems with sewage, especially when it floods. And I think one of the neighbors, I won't repeat his testimony, but he talked about something that he had to build out so that the sewage wouldn't back up into his house. And again, that's right now without this development being there. I'm concerned, obviously, that if you have a lot more sewage coming down the hill, that it's going to back up and it's going to start backing up into more homes on the street, including mine. So I don't know if, and again, is this a town issue? If my understanding, listening to some of the conversation at these meetings, is their responsibility is to put it out to the street, and the town's responsibility is to take care of it once it's out in the street. If that's a town issue or a development issue, but obviously there's concern down the bottom of the hill on Sunset that, it's bad right now, and it just seems like it's only going to get worse. So, again, if that's something that, the town engineer or somebody who's, in charge of these things in the town could keep an eye out for and just make sure that if it does get worse, that, it's not like the homeowners are going to have to do something to protect against this. Same thing with power, water pressure, electricity. Again, if things don't change, it's really no issue for me, but hopefully that as this gets built, that, we won't see any interruption in service, that the water pressure we have now, the power we have now. I know they're talking about burying power lines, and I'm not sure if I think I asked the question once before to Mr. Savage, and he answered that the power lines that are on the utility poles are going to still remain. So I hope everything just stays the same, and that, the power company will provide enough more juice to be able to service the 200 units. We talked about the maintenance that 2 years from now, I think like in landscaping, that you've got some controls in place to make sure that, if we have a drought next year, that all the landscaping burns up, that, that will be replaced, and that, the plans that show, the drawings that were presented that show everything, probably like 10, 15 years now, down the road in terms of the height of the trees and how everything looks nice and beautiful, that has a chance to actually grow and look like that. Okay. I would like to say, again, I've listened to a lot of the council meetings. I've been to just about all the planning board meetings. Thank you to Chairperson. I think you've done a great job. I can't ask for anything more in terms of, how you've spoke up for the residents and really, we're an advocate here for us. So thank you very much. From the council, I'd like to think that, the developers agreement will cover our issues as well. Again, I know that this is something where, we're only dealing with the Verona property, and the Montclair property is going to be what it's going to be, and I don't know if we can impose conditions on what they can or can't do on that lot. I guess they could sell it, they could develop whatever Montclair allows them to do. I guess that's out of our control, but, to the extent that there is anything added, I'm not an engineer, so I don't know what's possible. I'll just assume that anything can be done. But if they somehow sell it and put more apartments down at the end in the Montclair section, obviously it's just going to make a lot of things worse. And again, one of the things that I hope that you do at the council, or maybe even at the planning board, is you do an after-action review in terms of like this whole process here. I would imagine that you're going to have other developers like this one here doing similar developments and putting them in parts of the town where there's going to be a heavy impact in terms of the neighbors in the neighborhood and the impact it's going to have. Probably learned a lot in terms of the things that you did here, and you wish you knew this or wish you thought of this when you did the new development agreement first off. But I think it would be great if you actually, took some time and did some lessons learned. I would imagine that over time you're going to have a whole different board, and the town council already has several different members. So, while you still have the people around who were involved, and, before they go off and do other things, if you, write down what you learned and just, things that you can avoid next time. And I guess lastly, I know that you're going to really do a lot of damage in terms of, some of the people who have property adjacent to this. And, I hope that you're considering, what people and their property values and their property taxes are going to be after this is all said and done. I mean, I can tell you, I live probably a quarter of a mile away from the Annan building, and a lot of the things that you're concerned about light pollution, noise pollution, I mean, I see that, and I'm pretty far away. I mean, I just can't imagine if I were right next door and I had, you know, a house that I bought that looked like one thing, and now it's going to be something completely different. So I hope that you, you know, you expect that and that you treat those fairly. Okay, that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Just backing up to the very beginning, when you said that evergreen that's near Sunset, do you remember who was testifying from the applicant's side of things? Was it the applicant's landscape architect?
No, it was the owner-operator.
So it was the owner-operator himself?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it was one of the early meetings. It was, I don't remember the gentleman's name, but he lives in the house directly across, and, you know, he did speak to, I guess, that particular tree because it does block a lot of his view from his property.
Mr. Schwartz was?
I don't remember his name.
Well, I'll find it. I don't think it was Mr. Schwartz, but it was a representative of the company who was giving testimony from the operations side.
The operations guy.
It was the operations. There was an operations guy who testified?
If we look by,
Yes.
find when the resident made the comment, it would probably.
Yeah,
place in the meetings.
we can find it.
Okay.
I just don't remember it, so, and I try to write that kind of stuff down, but where?
Thanks for looking out for your neighbor.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Good evening. My name is Ken Berger. I'm the CEO of Spectrum 360. And so I work in Verona, and I used to live here, but that was the 1980s, so that doesn't count. But anyway, I just wanted to say a few things about us and our situation here. Spectrum 360 is a charitable nonprofit organization, and we serve over 500 individuals with autism and related disabilities every year. And we predominantly are providing those services to people in Essex County and nearby communities. And our mission is basically to help all of those people with autism and related challenges to lead the best lives they can, to help them with their aspirations, and to get them as connected to their communities and their families as possible. That's what we do. And as you know, one of our campuses, we have 2 schools and we have a day program, and one of our schools, we call it the lower school, is at 1 Sunset Avenue. And at that school, we service children from the age of 3 to the 8th grade. And the building was donated to us in the mid-1990s by the pharmaceutical company Hoffman LaRoche. And we have been providing school there for about 24 years. But something changed during that time, and it's our students. And because of the changes that happened with our students, about 10 years ago, we started looking for a new building. Why? Because the needs of our students had changed. The students that we're seeing today are much more challenged than they were 24 years ago. And as a result of that, we have to have one-to-one aids for a large number of our students. We have to provide a great deal more therapy services, so we have occupational, physical, speech therapy, and behaviorists that are on our team. And what that means for the building is that a typical classroom of 8 or 9 students can have as many as 20 people in the room. And the classrooms are not conducive to that in Verona. And so that's why we went on a search for another building. The other reality is that there are more and more, unfortunately, more and more children with autism that need our services, so we needed a bigger building as well to serve more people. But the primary reason was that the classrooms just can't accommodate the students. So we started looking for a building, and after a 10-year search, we finally found the building we wanted in Livingston. And so that building is more than double the size of our Verona building. Our Verona building is less than 50,000 square feet. The new building is 125,000 square feet. And so we bought the building. We bought the building in November of last year. We bought the building in the hopes that soon thereafter, we knew that this planning board was reviewing our sale to B&E, and we hoped it would happen soon thereafter. So, in the interim, to buy the new building, because we didn't have the money on our own, so we got a very significant bridge loan. And so during this time, since November, the carrying costs, the interest on that bridge loan, plus our other costs, are over $100,000 a month. So it's really a challenge for us to carry that. So we estimate that by the time we are able to sell the building to B&E with the current situation and the possibility of the contingencies and whatnot that will be required before a closing can occur, we estimate that we will be spending probably more than $1.5 million just on the carrying costs for this building that we now have. So it's not a good situation for us. Probably, yeah, it's going to be 1.5 million or more. So what that means is it places our organization in tremendous financial stress, and it's impeding our ability, it risks impeding our ability to continue to fulfill our mission of serving local children in the community. And so as a result of that, I just want to conclude by saying this to you. I implore you, please, on behalf of the people that we serve, that you please come to a decision tonight to approve this project and to have your staff work collaboratively with us and B&E to resolve any post-approval issues so that we can close with B&E, get the necessary funds to pay our bridge loan, and to move forward. Thank you. Thank you for your time.
Are there any other members of the public? I don't think so. So if does anybody have any comments? Okay, then I will close public. Mr. Inglesino.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and on behalf of the applicant, Verona Sunset Urban Renewal LLC, who is the contract purchaser of 1 Sunset Avenue, we want to thank the board. We want to thank the board's professional and staff for your attention to this application. We know you're all volunteers who give of your time and skills to serve this wonderful community. We appreciate that, and I'm sure that your residents do as well. This is the 12th hearing on this application, which commenced on August 25th of last year, so I wish you all happy anniversary. As you know, this is an as-of-right application for a 200-unit multifamily inclusionary development with amenity space, a pool, dog run, courtyards, and other associated infrastructure. 185 of the units will be market rate, and 15 will be affordable housing units. We're seeking one waiver, and that is to increase the plan sheet size from 24 by 36 to 30 by 42, which we note that Boswell in its June 1, 2023 report takes no issue with that request. Additionally, we have 3 technical nonconformities or variances, which we spoke of earlier. 1, parking in the front yard, which will provide the applicant with about 3 additional surface parking spaces. That was discussed at length during the proceedings. 2 was the retaining wall near the garage entrance to the loop driveway, which is needed to retain the existing tree and maintain the landscape buffer area. Again, that was discussed at length. And 3 was the wall at Basin C because of the fence on top of the wall, which we've also discussed previously and also this evening. You also know that this project arises out of the Affordable Housing Settlement Agreement between the Township of Verona and the current owner, Spectrum 360 LLC. That settlement agreement has been entered into the record of this hearing in Section 4 of that settlement agreement, the Township of Verona agreed that the property, which is the subject of this application, is suitable and developable for this project. Section 14 of the settlement agreement provides that the Township of Verona, including this planning board, shall cooperate with the applicant to secure all approvals for the project. The Township of Verona entered into a redevelopment agreement with the applicant, which is also part of the record. That agreement requires a payment of $3,250,000 to Verona's Affordable Housing Trust Fund to benefit Verona taxpayers by reducing the costs of municipal financed affordable housing in town, which I think is probably in close proximity to this building, if I am not mistaken. This provision was heavily negotiated by the Township Council to assist Verona taxpayers reduce the cost of Verona's financial obligation to construct affordable housing and to reduce development on this site. This site will also provide a substantial tax rateable for Verona over and above what it does today, and will benefit Verona taxpayers. And as you know, the alternative to this project was 300 units on this site with no payment to Verona's Affordable Housing Trust Fund. And we know that's not Verona's preference. I will not provide a detailed overview of the hearing. Suffice it to say that you've heard extensive testimony from our witnesses. I believe we've addressed all of your questions, and we've addressed the issues raised by your professionals. There are many conditions of approval, all of which will be set forth ultimately in a written resolution of approval, hopefully adopted by the board. I know that the applicant is excited about this project. I hope that you have come to appreciate that this is a first-rate, best-in-class developer and manager of luxury rental properties. We know that change can be difficult, particularly in such a beautiful and well-established neighborhood. I think the applicant appreciates that, and is why the applicant will develop a very high-end product, the demographic of which will be renters for the market rate units, renters of choice, not of necessity. We believe that the community will come to view this development as adding to the beauty and prestige of this treasured neighborhood. And so, Madam Chair, based on the foregoing, we respectfully request that the board approve the applications, this application with all of the conditions set forth in the record, and that the resolution and those conditions will be memorialized by formal written resolution. And once again, thank you to the board's professionals, staff, and I echo thank you, Madam Chair, for your extraordinary attention to detail on this application. I've participated in a lot of these hearings and sat in about every seat available, and I've never seen a chairperson as dedicated or committed to their community in terms of the time and effort that you put in and the detail of the work that you provide. It really is extraordinary, and you should be recognized to that, for that, to your residents. So with that, we conclude our case, and again, thank you all very much for your time and attention.
Thank you. I do want to just say, it's not an as-of-right application if you have variances, so you have to you need somebody to help you edit, because you said that the first day coming in, and with the changes, it's not as-of-right anymore. That said, thank you very much.
I stand by my comments. Not to be argumentative.
We are, at this time, Mr. Massaro, you're going to have to help me out.
Help you out. We just, I respectfully suggest that you hold the board and ask people if they have an opinion on favorability or disfavor of the application, solicit opinions of board members, or if you go right to a vote if you're in a hurry. But I think, typically you start under one side or the other, ask for people's general opinions, and then ask for a motion one way or the other, and
okay,
you're done.
So if you would like to express anything or not, I'll open it up Did Mr. Bernardo?
I don't have anything beyond what's been, discussed tonight. I do intend to vote in favor of the applicant.
We've been, as Mr. Inglesino noted, it's been a year. We've gone through it. It's a very comprehensive application. The applicant has agreed to a comprehensive list of conditions and minimize the variances within the redevelopers agreement. So we are legally bound to approve this as well. And this is also contingent on the town getting money for the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. So I tend to vote for a resolution in the affirmative of approving this application.
Thank you.
Over the past year, we've had many residents stand up and express their concerns about how this project will affect them. And in my opinion, the applicant has shown a willingness to address those concerns and also the concerns of the board. So I will, as a result of that, I will be voting yes.
I would also like to just echo what my colleagues have said. I have sat through many things in Verona, and I can say that the willingness of the applicant to work with us and to make it what Verona sees as its best needs just sort of overwhelms me. So needless to say, I'm voting in favor.
So a year ago, it was a, reasonably good plan coming in. I'd say from this year of deliberation, it's a much, much better plan. A year later, I think we have good confidence in the, based on the stormwater and the engineering, that a disaster is not going to fall from this naturally or otherwise from the place. I think that a lot of the neighbors' concerns have been addressed. I think it is, it's nice architecturally, and I think it's better throughout our work back and forth. And I also want to say, thank you to the many concessions, and I think you guys have been open to and working with us, making that plan better. It was very heartening to hear Mr. Riley, as a concerned neighbor, saying some of these things. I think the traffic, I'm glad you brought that up. That's sort of has gone by the wayside. These are things that we'll have to see. So, and then finally, it looks like a good place to live. So all those are the good aspects that I see here. What I want to know as far as my vote is what, and I ask this to you, Mr. Messere, as Mr. Inglesino said, the job and purview, as he says, of this board is to produce a site plan. Is that the limit of what we're voting on here?
Is to vote on the site plan. They
Vote
produce the
on the site plan.
We vote on the site plan. We vote on the variances that have evolved or were included in the original plan. But that's our job. Our job is not to revisit the redevelopment plan. It's not to revisit the fair share housing decision. It's to vote on what's presented and, based on the municipal land use law and really the redevelopment law, but municipal land use law in conjunction with that.
Because this aside, just stepping back, I think you said what, is outside of this is, I was looking at our opinion on the redevelopment plan and the plan coming in. If that's not applicable here on this vote, if it's really to the satisfaction of this site plan, then it would be it is as good a plan as we can make with what we've done here. So I have to erase my no.
You done?
I'm done. Yeah.
As noted by everyone of my colleagues here, this is a very long application, and it takes a lot out of all of us. Typically, when you go through these applications, you like to hear from residents. They live there, they know the neighborhood, you want to hear what they have to say. But unfortunately, when an application takes this long, as you can see, less and less residents show up. So, Mr. Riley, thank you for showing up. Your thoughts and your ideas and your advice to us is helpful. I will say, you talked about the light timing and the traffic. In 2024, I believe, the county will be doing the next stage of traffic lights coming up Bloomfield Avenue. They stopped at Montclair last year, and it will include Sunset and Bloomfield Avenue. So hopefully, they'll have cameras there, so light timing and delays would be less, so hopefully more cars can get out. It'll improve the traffic situation there. I will look into the light at Sunset and Mount Prospect. People have been asking for turning lanes, so tonight even proves it. It's good to have residents here, and we welcome your input and your feedback. So with that said, I will obviously be voting in favor of this. The architectural design of it, I like, but I will be voting in favor of it.
First off, my thank yous. The residents, obviously, everybody who's been here throughout this hearing. We appreciate all of the input. Obviously, we know that your homes are in this neighborhood. We know that this is a big change in the neighborhood. Thank you for calling out all of the issues that you are aware of from long-term residency in the neighborhood. I've been making notes the entire time. Thank you to the applicant and all the professionals. I do think that the architecture on this started out with a very good plan. I appreciate the professionals being willing to answer a lot of very tough and very pointed questions throughout all of this, and the applicant being willing to make changes. All my fellow board members for going all the way through this and continuing to do the best that we can for the residents in Verona, and same thing with our professionals. We got a master class in a lot of things related to engineering in particular about this, so thank you to everyone that worked on this. Our job here, we try and do neighborhood compatibility as much as possible. That's really when we were faced with this project, that's what we pivoted to when we started these hearings, was how do we make it better? We started out with a pretty good plan, and then we got into all of the details. And by being willing to spend time talking about fences and landscaping and transformers and garbage removal and retaining walls and traffic circulation, things like that, all of those issues are extraordinarily important. I appreciate, again, the applicant's willingness to go through all of this and to work with all of us to try and make this the best project we can. I do think that you are producing a high-quality product here, and I'm going to be supporting this project this evening, so I wish you all the best of luck going forward. So thank you, everyone.
I don't really have that much to say. It's all been said, pretty much. I do love this guy. I do understand, and I am appreciative of how many people came up to the mic from the public, stated a concern, and quite generally, those concerns were implemented into a revision in the plan. So I am very appreciative of the fact that those sorts of things were received very well. So I'm really happy that the neighborhood did come out, because without the neighborhood, a lot of those changes wouldn't have been made, not because we don't live next door to this building. So that is a good thing. I am a little concerned about the traffic situation. I am very relieved that there is no left turn out, no right turn in. So it's just that it will bottleneck onto the avenue. And I did agree with Mr. Riley's concerns. But beyond doing and putting those changes in, I think that that's kind of the best that could be done in order to keep traffic from filtering down the street the other way. I think it's good that those restrictions are there. And as far as stormwater, I am, and the others, I am concerned, but I am relying 100% on our professionals to ensure that whatever updates they receive will be checked twice and ensured compliance, and that the system will work. So with that, I will be voting yes. At this point, does the motion include the listing of the variances?
Motion.
Are we bifurcating everything?
Motion with the conditions and with the
Okay, so
variances in the waiver.
would somebody like to make a motion to approve the application, give me a second, application 2022-04 preliminary and final site plans for 1 Sunset Avenue, Block 303, Lot 1, to approve the site plans with the following variances. Do I have to say the sheet size?
No, that's a waiver.
Okay, that's a waiver. Parking in the front yard setback, or encroaching into the front yard. The wall height in the front yard location is greater than 4 feet with a 3-foot fence, 7 feet, and then a wall in the side yard that will look on the south side of the building that will, say again?
Retention basin C.
At retention basin C, which will also be at but no further higher than 7 feet. So it'll exceed the height with the fencing on the wall. Would somebody like to make a motion to approve this application with those variances?
And with each of the conditions that
With-
have been discussed.
You know what?
Well, and as modified, I mean,
Right, the conditions that have been discussed and as modified this evening,
Mhm.
and with all other conditions and representations that the developer has made during the course of the hearings, which will be incorporated into the final resolution.
Did I misrepresent the wall height in the front yard? I said 7 feet, but I think that is the side yard or the sunset.
What was it as depicted on
The
plan?
testimony and as
Yeah.
depicted in the
Okay,
exhibits.
thank you. Nobody wants to.
I would like to make a motion to approve this application as with all the comments that were just made regarding all the stipulations that we've agreed to.
Okay, so Al Diold makes the motion. Can I get a second?
I will second the motion.
Councilman Roman seconds. We need a roll call vote.
Mr. Jacobson, Mr. Bernardo.
Bernardo?
Aye.
Chris, I don't,
Oh, does he vote?
um,
Because
You didn't certify that you saw the meetings that you missed, correct?
right.
You weren't able to see them. They even took them down off of YouTube.
Right, so Mr.
So, yeah.
Bernardo should recuse, he's recused.
so he's recused from the vote? Okay.
It's just-
Okay, my apologies. Mr. Katsif,
Approve.
Mr. Lilly,
Approved.
Mr. Hindman, Mr. Kamudi,
Approved.
Mr. Diold,
Approved.
Deputy Mayor McAvoy,
Approved.
Councilman Roman,
To approve.
Vice Chairman Fresky,
Yeah. No, he's not here.
and Chairperson Pearson.
Yes. The motion passes. At the next meeting, we will have a fully drafted, wonderfully crafted resolution with all of the conditions of approval, et cetera. And you will not be present at that meeting, correct? Are you going to miss us? You got to come?
I hope they'll have me back to Morristown. It's been about a year since I've been there. I'm their port attorney. I think I'll be in Morristown next month, but, you know, we'll figure it out.
We'll send you a copy.
Okay, thank you. Someone will be here.
I'm sure Mr. Orth will be here, and we will draft the resolution, and Mr. Orth and Mr. Inglesino have an opportunity to review it. It'll be probably co-authored and
Okay.
realistically, because it's
Right.
not going to be a simple task.
Okay. With that, do we have any new business?
But a happy birthday to our stenographer who spent the birthday.
That's it. Happy birthday. What dedication?
Do we have a stenographer? Or do they?
They do. Motion to adjourn. Can I?
Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
I don't know who, I made a motion, you seconded, all members.
Aye.
Thank God.
What happens if, we didn't properly close the meeting? Is it ongoing? Like, is there a meeting? Like, do we get paid? Right, it's like, oh, the meeting is never ending. We have to go back.
We went home.
Right.